I want to talk today about Warhammer 40,000 10th edition. The terrain setup, the mission objectives, the actual objective markers, that sort of thing. Now, I played Warhammer 40k since 4th edition. However long ago that was. The early 2000s, I guess? Mid 2000s? And I played up until about 8th edition. We had the big switch from 7th to 8th. And we had global shutdowns. And I didn't play 9th at all. But we did stick with Heresy. Basically in 7th edition, we picked up Horus Heresy. So during 8th, I played Horus Heresy and 8th edition. But then I pretty much stopped playing 40k entirely and only played Horus Heresy. And I've been that way ever since, until recently. I finally had my first game of 10th edition, which was fantastic. I had a great time. My opponent, amazing person. First time meeting, he was a gentleman. It was great. Taught me the ropes and everything. I brought my Space Marines out, my Angels of Iron. It was an absolute blast. No complaints there. It was great. But I've been noticing something with 40k, and I'm very late to the party because I am aware we've been in 10th for a while. But I've seen this pattern that really put me off playing 10th for a while, and I don't know if it started in 9th or what, but it's the L-shaped cardboard terrain that has to be set up in a really specific way just doesn't feel right to me at all. Like, I get that you're doing match play tournament, like that's sort of, you're trying to make it as fair as possible in that way. Unfortunately, what happens is the average casual gamer for pickup games, that's what people play. Because when you're meeting someone casually for the first time and playing them in a pickup game, you're going to default to that sort of gameplay because that's just the way it is socially. Like, you're like, well, these are the rules we all know is the sort of fair thing to do, so it's probably best to start there. As someone who plays Horus Heresy, who goes to narrative events, who is trying to actually plan narrative events, more to come on that later, it just doesn't sit right with me having, like, look at this picture, okay? Now, I'm not going to point fingers at anyone here on this. This is a great channel that does this. You can see by the logo, Northern Knights Gaming, that I'm subscribed to them. They're a good channel. And I want to be totally fair to Northern Knights Gaming because they have some beautiful tables on their channel. And in this situation, this is how they decided to play. This is how they decided to set up the table. And I know a lot of these game mats were designed in a different time. So that's all fine. Like, you play your game how you want to play it. That's no problem. And of course, when I first started playing, I had some pretty rough terrain. I would cut up cereal boxes, spray paint them, and call them a blown out building, and that was it, right? Like, we're all in different stages in our hobby. I'm just at a stage now where I like something more out of my terrain. But it seems to be a very regular thing to see these L-shaped cardboard or MDF board buildings that just do not look as good. This seems to be way more normal than it used to be. I just decided to tune into their live stream to check this out because I've been getting back into 40k, trying to get prepared for playing a Crusade narrative session. And I saw this terrain setup and I was like, what in Holy Emperor is going on? Is this an official Games Workshop setup? Why are the buildings crossing into the roads? Why is every building the exact same, basically? Almost. Not quite exactly the same. But they're all the, like, pretty much similar sized L-shaped ruin. And then you see the objective markers. What are they fighting over? They're fighting over big circles because the mission says so. This just looks wrong to me. Like, it's It's an arena for a sport, not a war game tactical simulation. We should be fighting over bunker, or we should be fighting over the governor's palace, or we should be fighting over, defusing the bomb or something like that, or like a servo skull or data slate or a super secret emperor's box of goodies, which is a specific thing that I actually used to use as an objective marker. I put a little one of those boxes from like the Imperial Guard tanks on a base, and I'm like, this is the Emperor's super secret box. Of course it's a joke, but it's like, well, this could be a case of like goods. It's like the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. What's the valuable thing they're fighting over? Or maybe you're trying to protect a VIP, right? These circles do not immerse me into the battle, into the story. These L-shaped ruins crossing over into a road does not immerse me. And again, this is not a knock on this channel. Great channel. I've actually been learning about 40K because of this channel, and I respect it a lot. But I just would never set up a table like this. Not in a million years. It doesn't sit right with me. I'm into it. I'm not a tournament guy. I have been to tournaments before. I've attended a couple. I had a great time. Tournaments are actually very underrated amongst people who are scared of them. Like, you should actually try them. They are a lot of fun. Even if you think, well, I'm not a tournament guy. They're great. I will say that. But yes, I, as a Horus Heresy person, we tend to call them like narrative events. We have Team Loyalist, Team Traitor, we're fighting over key locations, and we're evolving a greater story. We're not in an arena fighting over circles. So, as someone who sat outside of Warhammer 40K 10th edition for years at this point, this is something that put me off the game, and I wish this would not be the norm anymore, but I guess this is part of Games Workshop's efforts at making Warhammer 40K into an esport. And the other thing that I had problems with, okay, I was going to say stratagems, but I actually thought the stratagems were really well implemented overall this time. I remember in 8th edition it became very abusable with the way you made detachments. There'd just be like, I remember playing my Chaos Space Marines, and I would have a decent amount of command points, but I could only do a few abilities here and there. It was whatever, right? When I brought my Imperial Guard army out, I could never use up enough command points. I had so many, and I was just spamming out abilities like crazy. So they've really reined that in, and I really respect what Games Workshop did with stratagems. They're actually like really cool tactical abilities now, rather than just doing what feels like cheating. So I got no problem with stratagems. The last thing I do have a problem with, however, is the missions themselves. Maybe it's because I could not... This is maybe not even fair, actually, because I did not buy any 10th edition books. I've been using all online resources, because over the years I've collected so many books from Games Workshop that they are all sitting invalidated. I'm actually trying to sell some off, and I just didn't want to buy any more books. They cost a lot of money, and they end up getting invalidated very quickly. I've read the lore many times over at this point. I don't need more lore. And yeah, so the missions, I could not wrap my head around what was happening with the missions entirely. I had to constantly ask my opponent, wait, what am I trying to do again? You want to get the circles, obviously, but then there's like the secondaries are changing constantly. I don't know what Pariah Nexus missions are. I'm assuming that's from some supplement book or whatever. But as someone who wants to get back into it, who's actually an experienced player of over 15 years, I found it confusing. And the base system of Warhammer 40K is not confusing. You roll to hit, you roll to wound, you do your saving throw. It makes perfect sense. Like, all of that stuff is relatively simple. And there's a lot to offer with just those things. I come from a time when the objectives used to be things like a bunker or you're trying to protect a VIP, or you're trying to capture some important building, or you would use objective markers quite often, but they would represent tactically important locations on the field. I don't know. When I look at this image, just doesn't look right to me. It doesn't look like it's going to immerse me in the story. You know what is a really good example and a very underrated terrain creators? Actually, they're probably not even underrated. Check out those model train people on YouTube. Model train scenery is so beautiful. They do such a good job. Like, I want to play on these model train scenic tables. They're just beautiful. That's what I want to play Warhammer on. And it's like, okay, we're fighting over this train bridge or something. I don't know. Like, it does not lend itself well to, like, total fairness. But to me, it's so much more immersive to look at. And I just absolutely adore what the model train people do with their scenery is just incredible. So, random tip, if you ever want to see some cool terrain tutorials, check out the model train scenic people, because they do some good work. Just to end on that, I got a meme here that basically explains my concern with 10th edition. Every other game system, oh man, this board looks awesome. For real, I can't wait to play a thematic game on it. But then you have 40K. This isn't one of the allowed 6 terrain setups from Games Workshop. Don't worry, I brought ITC-approved L-shaped hideous cardboard. That's the thing that drives me crazy too. Like, I worked really hard on my terrain to make it look really nice and scenic and immersive, and I've just seen so much of this cheap MDF L-shaped ruins popping up, and they look terrible. They just look awful. Why? Games Workshop. What? Why? I guess Games Workshop offer good-looking terrain. This is just the cheap sort of alternative, I guess, that a lot of game clubs use, or I don't know what the deal is, but to me it looks terrible. This is not what... Like, Warhammer weirdly got worse looking because of this to me. So that's what's been blocking me from 10th edition. Overall, the game is actually not even that bad. I would say reduce the missions to be a little more straightforward. I don't want to have to use 3 different applications to play my game. Here's your objectives. Whoever holds them at the end wins. Done. What you used to do would be place, I think it was 1/4 of the table filled with terrain, and now you each take turns alternating placing the terrain across the table. And then when you choose your deployment, you do your roll-off and one player chooses deployment zone, like, that kind of makes it fair. If both players don't know where they're going to go, the players are forced to try to make it fair so they can give themselves a chance if they do end up on the wrong side of the table. So to me, that just works on its own. So before I repeat myself anymore, that's it for this one. That's my 10th edition complaint. I don't know, maybe I'm a grumpy old man and I'm just complaining about nothing, but that's something that bothers me about 10th edition. There's actually a lot of good about it, and I'm looking forward to actually trying to get more games in. I think what it's really going to take at the end of the day is discussing with your opponent in advance, hey, let's set up the terrain in an immersive storytelling way, and let's try and do this cool thing. Like, talk with your opponent, come up with something with them. Use your imagination and see if you can create something really spectacular.